Hey guys, welcome back. So we are looking at lesson 5 today. So we're looking at fitting lines. Now, obviously, I'm not going to be giving you a piece of pasta and a straight edge. That'd be a little difficult. But we are going to take a look at these to look at fitting lines to these scatter plots. So here are 2 copies of the same scatter plot. Experiment with drawing lines to fit the data. Pick the line that you think best fits. Compare it with a partner's. Obviously, we can't really compare, but we're going to take and look at trying to draw lines of best fit. So we're going to look at seeing different ways to take and do these by drawing that line. So let me grab my ruler. So I'm going to line it up with this top point here. So I've got my ruler on that point there, and then I'm going to do it on this bottom point here. So I'm going to connect those 2 points, hopefully, on here. So, kind of, sort of. Got a little off the end, but there could be a line to fit the data. Now, technically we have a second graph, but I'm just going to do it all on the same one for purposes to make it a little easier to compare these. So I'm going to use a different color to represent this second line. Now, a second line, now obviously a lot of our points are actually above this line. There's only a few of them that actually are right on the line. So a better fit for this line might be something like, oh, I went a little higher than I wanted to. Hang on. Trying to figure out how to do the ruler and this at the same time is challenging. There we go. So that might be a slightly better line of fit. So we have a more even spacing of points to the right side of it and to the left side of it. So while we still don't have very many points that perfectly line up on this line, we might be a little more centralized in the data and be representing it a little better. The blue line was a little low in comparison to most of the points, since a lot of them are much higher up, especially as we get into the 9 and the 6 through 9 section. Pardon me. So basically, an appropriate line would have a negative trend, so have a negative slope, and would be through the middle of the points. So we want it to be through the middle. We don't want it to be below or above. We definitely wouldn't want a positive slope. If we saw something that looked like, let me change the color, this, that green line does not represent the data at all. It's got all of 1 point that is touching it. So that would be a very bad representation of a trend line. So keep that in mind as we're talking about trend lines. We want them to best represent the data. We don't want it to be far off. Now, obviously, we can't have it go through every single point. That wouldn't be a line. That'd just be a bunch of crazy little pieces all mixed together. It wouldn't be an actual line we could have an equation of. So now we're going to take a look at another one. So that was the same one. So here are, once again, there's 2 copies. We're just going to do it all right on this one. Here are 2 copies of another scatter plot. Experiment with drawing lines to fit the data. Pick the line you think best fits. So we're going to go back to the blue. So we have this trend right here of our data. So we want to take and draw a line. So let's see if I can draw one. So we're going to do this one. Okay, so here is one line of fit. So it's kind of in the middle. We've got a few that are kind of high. These ones are fairly close to this line. These are kind of far away, but for the most part, it seems fairly centralized. We could also do one. Let me change the color once again. Or we could say that it's something more like that. So this pink one, definitely it comes up further into this trend of data. So this scatter plot is difficult because it kind of has, it's all close together at the beginning, but then the further to the right we go, it kind of branches off in 2 directions. So this one's a hard one to get a nice line of fit or trend line for this data because it's more spread out. It doesn't have a strong correlation. It's got a weak correlation because of how spread out it is. But either one of these lines, the key thing, it needs to be a positive slope. So it needs to be going up and to the right. So once again, like that green one I showed you, if we did it the opposite direction, if we did a line like that, that's not a very good trend line. It's nowhere close to our data. It's not following it at all. So the scatter plot is going up and to the right. Our line should go up and to the right. We also want it to try and be as close to through the middle of the points as possible. Obviously, that's difficult. So we want to get these points as close as possible to this line as we're doing it, though. That's the key thing with these trend lines or lines of best fit. All right, so your keyword for this lesson is trends. Since we were looking at trend lines, your keyword is trends. So it's all about scatter plots and trying to give a trend or look at a pattern. So tying in with what we've already looked at for these. All right, have a wonderful week and happy mathing.